All right. Well, welcome to our session here today, Empowering a Remote Workforce with Jamf. We've got a couple of Jamfs on the line and, of course, Shams from Evernote joining us as well. We've got a lot of content to cover in just a short period of time. So, again, thank you for joining us. We're going to jump right in. Now, before we dive in, we've got this forward-looking statement disclaimer. Of course, review this if you'd like to. Take a screenshot and take a look at your convenience. But with that, let's rock and roll. I'm Garrett, Product Marketing Manager for Jamf Pro here at Jamf. Joining us is Shams Mansour, Senior IT Manager at Evernote. Shams, we are so excited to have you here today. And of course, we'll roll through Kaylee Carlson, Product Marketing Manager for Jamf Connect, and Matthias Wolnick, Product Marketing Manager for Jamf Protect. So a lot of folks on the line, but a lot of content and ground to cover here. And we're going to begin with Shams in just a minute to talk about, I think, something that's really applicable to basically all of us on the call here today. You know, a couple of months ago, we were looking at 2020 with a completely different lens than we are right now. And so here's our agenda. We're going to walk through what it looks like to manage and empower a remote workforce, the role of identity in remote workforce management, and of course, that has changed and grown in scope this year, how we make sure that we maintain security of remote devices, and then we've got time for live Q&A. So we're all going to stick around, plenty of time for Q&A during the session and afterward live in the chat. So maybe with that, let's just jump right in. Shams, I want to give you a chance just to say hello and introduce yourself. Thanks for joining us here today.
Garrett, thank you so much. I'm really excited to be a part of this webinar session here. First of all, my name is Shams Mansour. I am the Senior IT Manager for Evernote. My primary responsibilities include making sure everything in IT is up and going and everyone is taken care of when they need any IT assistance.
Yeah, and Shams, you know, Evernote is such a compelling company on its own, but we just love that it's chosen Jamf and that you've chosen Jamf to help not only empower remote workers this year, but for years in the past as well. So I'm sure you've got a lot of great insight for us here today. It's been a super strange year to kind of, you know, be Captain Obvious here to start the webinar. You know, you and I were talking about this earlier, that we kind of looked at 2020 as a strategic planning exercise from both a Jamf and an Evernote perspective, and it was wildly different than it looks right now. And so maybe with that, let's just dive right in, Shams. I want to begin here. We've got a lot of folks on the line that, frankly, for 5 or 6 months, we've just been grappling with change. And I think in IT, I would love to hear your perspective on this. We've always kind of been dealing with change on a day-to-day basis, right? It's kind of our role to be problem solvers. But Shams, tell me if you agree with this. 2020 has certainly taken that to a new level. Would you agree on the Evernote side?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, let's be honest. This has been one of those years that we completely did not expect to happen, as you mentioned at the beginning during the introduction. A lot of the things and a lot of the processes and policies have changed. And to be honest with you, you know, personally, I did not expect IT to have so much different changes. And obviously, we're going to go over those different criterias in a bit. But one thing for sure, I really do miss working with people face to face and taking care of them, you know, giving them that, close by interaction, which is dearly missed. But hopefully things will be better. And I think this has been a really good learning curve for me, someone in the IT sector, that always be prepared for the unexpected, right? And always be prepared. So yeah, definitely.
I think you paint such an interesting picture here, Shams, of the difference between the impact on how we serve our end users, which, to your point, we used to see a lot of our colleagues face to face, right? And water cooler talk and like seeing people in the break room. Those were very real things. And you'd run into somebody, catch up on the weekend, and then go back to your day job. And now you kind of need to make structured time. On the flip side, I think as IT professionals, we're just in a different and kind of stranger spot than many of us have been ever, right? This changed so quickly overnight. And I think a lot of us have really had to make some kind of decisive action and take decisive action to make sure that we can succeed and our end users can still succeed in 2020. So let's use that as a springboard. Talk to me about that shift. I'm sure, you on the IT side, you maybe saw this coming, but what did IT at Evernote look like early in 2020? And then what does it look like today? How has that changed?
Well, I mean, at the beginning of 2020, we had a lot of projects that we thought we were going to deploy that would obviously make things very efficient and productive. But then we realized that once the pandemic started, we realized that we were lacking a lot of this face-to-face interaction with a lot of our colleagues, and we realized that our IT help desk infrastructure, the way we were providing IT help, we didn't have an IT help location in our offices, right, where people could come and ask you questions. We realized it's going to be a lot of virtual, a lot of these tickets coming in, and we started to write up these self-wiki pages for our customers so they can start, answer the most common IT questions and take care of themselves. We also made sure that we, automation has always been in our mind at the beginning of the year, but we started to automate a lot of the things that were related to onboarding, because as mentioned, we definitely lacked the human interaction, and a lot of the onboarding started to happen virtually. A lot of the logistics related to it, like shipping a hardware or making sure that their accounts are ready, were dependent on these automations. But also at the same time, we had to make sure that a lot of manual process related to onboarding had to be automated. And we did that thanks to our identity access management, which we use OneLogin, and also Better Cloud. And obviously we could have not done it without, Jamf's amazing zero touch features and self-service. Without that, I don't think our onboarding would have been even possible in this day and age. That said, we have been using Jamf for a while now, about 6 to 7 years, and I personally used it for more than 7 years. And I'm not really sure how onboarding would look like if Jamf wasn't in the picture, right? It's not just onboarding, but it also helps us to track and manage a lot of these hardwares around us. And also, and it gives us the sense of satisfaction when it comes to making sure that all our devices are there in the environment, they're working the way it is. As I mentioned, there isn't a way to actually touch a device anymore because we don't have the human interaction. But thanks to Jamf, we're able to track and audit and also, pinpoint any issues related to any of the devices within our company. So, yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. And, I love the point you're making about satisfaction, because I feel like this is so true for companies like Evernote. You are a big and visible company that, frankly, a lot of other companies look up to. I mean, the Evernote logo carries a lot of weight, right? And so when somebody accepts an offer to come and join your team or another team at Evernote, there's a certain expectation there. If you want to be welcomed into the company and welcome to that team, and you really want IT to rise to that same level, right? So I'd imagine you're thinking about this from an end user satisfaction point of view as well. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, the first thing you need when you start working for any tech company like Evernote is a computer, right? So your exposure to IT is the first thing. And my policy and my philosophy about an employee starting at our company is they should feel like Christmas, right? They should have their hardware, they should have their accounts ready, they should have access to all the applications they need. And that's why we start to leverage a lot of the identity access management tools where we automated some of the account creations within them. But also, thanks to Zero Touch, we're able to deploy these computers to them directly to their houses. All they have to do is open up the laptop, and whatever they need to get their work started on day one is already there. And also, we make sure their accounts are created in a week in advance, so that in that way they can start creating their accounts and setting up whatever they need. So basically, we have also reduced the amount of time when it comes to orientation. As you know, orientation is very important to us because we want to make sure all the employees know what and how things are configured and how to use our various IT stuff. So Yeah, I mean, it should be. We try our best to make sure our new hires don't have to contact IT the first day other than orientation. Everything should be covered before that because we don't want to be a blockade in any way. And as you said, you're right. I mean, with IT help desk being 100% virtual, we do have a lot of these tickets coming in with various issues, and we have to prioritize which is important, which is not important. But at the same time, all new hires are important to us because there could be stuff that they would not be able to work on, and that's going to stop their first day of work. So, yeah, definitely, those are some of the cool features we are leveraging with Jamf, and also, we strategize a lot of the things after uh, we thought were not going to be possible or are possible right now. So, yeah.
Well, and I love the goal of that first day of work. You shouldn't be talking to IT more than maybe one time. I think that is so aspirational for a lot of companies. And, we touched on strategic planning here for 2020 a couple of times, but I wonder if you think back, maybe 8 or 9 or 10 months, really to the end of 2019 into early 2020, was there something that you really thought, 2020 is going to look like X? And it's really become something different? Or maybe on the flip side, is Evernote just kind of able to consistently execute? What does the year look like?
Yeah, so we actually, to be honest with you, we're focused on a lot of different projects at the beginning of the year, and then once the pandemic hit, we started to focus on our existing policies and procedures, and to see how we could actually fine tune them or actually improve them to better reflect with the current situations. And as I mentioned with automations, we wanted to make sure that a lot of the work that we did manually would be completely transformed into a lot of minimal steps. And because of those automations, as I was talking about, like, for example, the orientation process, for example, that has drastically reduced. We used to have an hour orientation where we used to sit down with the employee, we used to go through their hardware and set up their accounts and start downloading other necessary applications that they would need, or show them how to use various stuff. We decided that we could automate a lot of these things by just writing up a onboarding article or a wiki page that we send out with the computers. And that has reduced our orientation time from an hour to 25 minutes. And the extra time we have right now, we're still using to tweak a lot of the stuff we do now. So to be honest, situations create opportunities. That's what I believe in. And I think this has been a situation for us to actually improve and polish a lot of our IT stuff. So, yeah, I mean, as I said, we were not expecting this to happen, but at the end of the day, I think well, the processes and what we have learned, we will keep this forever, and nothing is going to change, even if our offices open up, and which is hopefully soon. But yeah, that's
I think. Well, you make such a great point there, Shams, that, the change we're seeing today can have an impact on the business, on the core function of IT for the long term. And I love that. And so you've talked about big challenges here in a couple of different areas of it's changing fast. And it's not just on the strategic side. What I'd maybe like to do is jump ahead. We've talked a lot about, kind of being an IT pro in this environment. What are maybe the 3 pro tips you would pass on? Because I think Evernote as a company and you as an IT leader, you've really been in the trenches in a really unique way. And I think you found some kind of key learnings. What are some things that folks should take away from the session today?
Yeah, definitely. So leverage the use of zero-touch deployment as much as you can, and try to tweak it in such a way that it is configured in a way where every time a new computer that comes into a fleet has all the necessary applications and configurations on day one. Let's not wait anymore. And the best way to have a cross-reference check is to just go over the IT tickets that come in from a new hire employee, and see how you can automate those tasks. And talking about automations, we have actually leveraged the use of Better Cloud which is, by the way, an amazing tool, and it has a lot of API configurations already built in, or you can build your own. We have used that with our identity access management and Jamf to automate a lot of our users' account creations and a lot of user access. And the last thing is, as I mentioned, like, we really don't have a real IT person anymore working with everyone. So it is really important that there are channels and mediums where people can actually contact IT as soon as possible. So having the necessary, for example, if you use Slack, to have a dedicated IT channel where people can reach out to IT, whatever they need for. Back in the days, it was mostly like DMing, like, hey, my computer is not working, or I need help, or, they should just come up to your desk. Well, we don't have the luxury anymore because time is very important. So having the right channels, having the right ITSM tools, and to be in fair honesty, try to write up a lot of the common IT problems that you see within your company in a Wikipedia, so that when people do have questions, they can go to your IT help page and just type it in, and they'll get the right solution. So there's a couple of ones out there. These things were already there in place, but I think we're just leveraging them even more now, and has made our lives much easier over the last few months.
It's such a great point, and I don't think we can say this enough, that existing IT workflows took on new value over the past 6 months. And it's just such a great example to hear, Shams, how you and the team at Evernote have really taken things like zero-touch deployment and said, look, this can be not only a good workflow for IT, but it could be a cornerstone for how we make sure that we can still succeed while everybody's at home, which is not something we expected this year or maybe ever as an organization. So I just love those points. And I love the shout out for Better Cloud as well. Great partner of Jamf and a huge friend of both of our organizations. So great shout out there. What we'll maybe do next is kind of keep pulling on that thread of identity. And Kaylee, I want to bring you in, product marketing manager for Jamf Connect, our identity product, to take it from here. Kaylee?
Thanks, Garrett. So Shams, I'd love to talk to you about the role that identity and identity management played in your shift to supporting remote workers. I mean, we know from working closely with organizations over the past 6 months that now more than ever, there's a need to validate that the right person is accessing company machines and data while maintaining that positive user experience and providing your employees with what they need to be productive. But before we do that, and I know that you already mentioned this a little bit earlier, but can you tell us again what cloud identity provider that you're using and when and why you made the switch from on-prem Active Directory to the cloud?
Yeah, definitely. We are actually using OneLogin as our IDV provider right now. And we made this switch around about 3 to 4 years back as a initiative to move all our most of our company infrastructure from on-prem to the cloud. And one of the reasons we really went ahead with OneLogin is because they were the only solution provider back in the days who had a VLDAP feature that we really try to leverage as much as we can. Obviously, SAML and SSO are industry standards, but there are still some tools that are dependent on LDAP. So, yeah.
Okay. Yep, that makes sense. And then you talked a lot about the zero-touch deployment process with Jamf Pro and how Jamf Pro has helped you streamline that process for your remote employees. Can you also talk about what Jamf Connect has helped you accomplish within that zero-touch strategy?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, we recently also introduced Jamf Connect as the pandemic started in our environment, and it's actually I would say a cherry on the topping for our zero touch deployment feature, because it gives our end users a unified, an access management solution for them when they are, to access various, not just access their applications, but also it lets users access their hardware with the same unified password solution there. But at the same time, we have also noticed using Jamf Connect, it gives us it also adds a extra step of automation when it comes to setting up computers. So we have an additional workflow where people can, during the zero touch deployment setup, they go through the whole identity access management part and set up, through Jamf Connect, they get to set up their accounts, which was a manual process before. Now it gets automated. So that definitely has leveraged a lot of our things.
Great. And, I can imagine that just having this, kind of rapid shift to all these remote workers and them, your workers getting their computers, just having that extra step of automation and having everything they need on day one without, the ability to come to your office or your desk and talk to you about getting their computer set up has just made a huge difference in productivity.
Yeah, it definitely has, and we definitely we definitely are trying to figure out more different ways how we can be more effective and more productive to our end users. At the end of the day, the IT team is basically an internal customer support for the company. If they have problems and issues, we're the first person they try to come to. But at the same time, we're trying to we're trying to audit and also track a lot of the various problems that come by nowadays and see how we can automate them. And one of the things that we want to make sure is onboarding is 100% automated as possible. And as mentioned, like Jamf Connect is a cherry on the topping for that.
Yep, that's great to hear. Well, anything else that you want to tell us about the Jamf Connect experience, other than it feeling like Christmas, either from your perspective in IT or anything else that you've heard from end users?
No, we definitely like the fact that our end users are basically entitled to just use one single security password for all their access management or accessing their applications or their hardware. I think it is something they really enjoy, and also that is less tickets for us if someone forgets their computer password versus their identity access management password, which makes a big difference for sure. So yeah.
So Christmas for you too.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, thank you so much, Shams, for talking about that experience with Jamf Connect. I will go ahead and pass it over to Matthias to talk about securing devices.
Thank you, Kaylee. So Shams, we spent a lot of time talking about simplifying how we manage devices, how we deal with identity. Let's dive a little bit into the world of security. Now, there's been a lot of talk in the security industry about detecting threats to your environment while with the remote workforce and how effective solutions are. But the area where we haven't heard as much is how to deal with things when things go bad, when an attack is identified. How have things shifted for you with the remote workforce when a security team comes to you and asks you for help with resolving a security incident, with responding to a security incident?
Yeah, so we take security very, very seriously at Evernote, and obviously in our IT department. And one of the things that if there is a if there is a security related issue that needs to be taken care of, back in the days, obviously when things are normal, we used to go to the end user, or security used to contact either the end user or the IT to go and mitigate that issue. Right now, we don't have the luxury to go meet the person or get access to their device, which has been challenging. But with anything that were to happen or would happen, and if IT has to go and mitigate in this virtual environment, I think one of the things that we would leverage most probably is using Jamf's wipe feature, which would definitely just completely let the end user not completely wipe the computer if needed, or we can just completely turn off access with that feature, and then go ahead and start investigating or do anything else that needs to be done for that hardware. So yeah, definitely, some of these, commands that Jamf MDM solution provides is not actually just for locking a device, for example, or like wiping a hardware just because we have to do that, but it's also being leveraged for other purposes. In terms of security too, I mean, let's be honest, like computer, I mean, there could be a possibility that, with this whole remote onboarding feature that we are shipping these laptops to our various new hires or new employees, that could get lost in the mail. Right. And Jamf Zero Connect with, Zero Touch deployment with Jamf Connect actually creates this level of barrier of security that users cannot go past a setup screen until they actually log in, authenticate successfully, and then the rest of the onboarding Zero Touch workflow kicks in. So, yeah, I mean, some of these features with Jamf actually ended up being security features for us, which is amazing.
It's actually a really interesting point. The fact that you never physically touch a device causes certain difficulties, which actually brings you to the next question. You've already talked about the fact that devices could get stolen and how do you protect these things. But what are the big challenges that you've encountered with helping secure devices you can't actually physically handle? You can't go to someone's desk and say, let me help you with this. Let me remove this bad thing. Let me fix your configuration for you, right? What challenges have you encountered in that area?
I think it's as I discussed a little bit about how we are leveraging some of the Jamf's remote features in order to mitigate some of those issues when it comes to like fixing a security threat or fixing a configuration. But we have also noticed that with offboarding, when an employee does leave the company, we actually don't have access to the hardware right away. And it is very important for us that we cut their access as soon as possible on their last day, and that has been a challenge. But thanks to Jamf's lock command, we are able to lock their computers as soon as we're done offboarding them from our systems. That gives us a sense of satisfaction, and obviously, like, we know that the hardware cannot be used for any other reasons if desired, because it is a company property at the end of the day. So yeah,
that's always an interesting discussion about how to offboard someone successfully, how to recover a device, how to make sure the company's data stays secure. Now, in the interest of time, let me give you one more question. What are any interesting learnings that you've discovered about how to help security situations, how to help secure devices in a more remote world? What are any interesting tidbits that you've learned along the way?
To be honest, we actually learned how to leverage your product even more now, and tailor it to our needs. And that all that came in the last couple of months with the various challenges we had related to pandemic. And we never thought we would use some of the features for various reasons right now that we thought we would use it before. But and to be honest with you, I mean, there isn't a much challenge with using Jamf. I think it has just made our life so much easier than we expected. And as I mentioned, it gives us a sense of satisfaction that our devices are protected, tracked, and audited the way we want it to be. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Shams, for diving into this with us, sharing your story and things that you have learned through this journey, this very exciting year. So to summarize, remote working is something that we're all dealing with now. And it's something that likely will continue for quite a while going forward. Managing remote devices, empowering users is a really important part of being able to ensure the happiness of your users, making sure that your users stay secure, your devices stay secure, your data stays secure. And for all of these things, Jamf is here to help organizations with Apple, even in a world that's mostly remote. Thank you very much for listening. We look forward to your questions. Have a wonderful JNUC 2020.